This is Scott Kemple again, back with the Forster Podcast. Josh, we've had several here that you have not been a part of, because we did quite a few out at that Shields event, and a lot has happened for yourself and in the world between then and now. You a top 3 finish in a national match, winning of another regional match. Ozzy Osbourne died.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of worldly things have been going on.
Yeah, there's been some ups and downs. Yeah, I've been having a couple strong matches lately, so hopefully we keep that rolling into the end of the year.
Yeah, I put a hat on. That's different. So,
yep.
It's more for sun protection, anti-cancer on this episode here,
Yeah,
but
sure.
It's kind of nice that, a lot of those discussions, minus when we talked to Peterson, that we got pretty technical on brass and some things there. This episode, we're going to hopefully get a little more technical again, and it's actually inspired by a question someone had about kind of wanting to demonstrate some ways to find the lands in your rifle. And I know, some of the other questions we've had in our videos try to get some more like on camera things that we can display. We just kind of released a headspace gauge video using goes and no-go gauges, and I think that's our plan, is just kind of keep creating that over time. But some of that within the episode here is nice for us to just force ourselves to talk about it and explain it, because I think that sometimes makes us do some of those little iterations that we would normally skip over in a visual demonstration too.
Yeah.
So today, by the time we're done with this episode, you're gonna have a lot of tools in your tool belt on how to find the lands in your rifle and why that is important, why in some instances maybe it's not as important, and just it's something that yourself as a gunsmith has a lot of, it's something you're thinking about all the time relating to different bullets and things, even in your Reamer manufacturing.
Yeah, definitely Reamer specs and free bore, and where, if a guy's shooting this bullet or that bullet, where we want that bullet to sit in the best spot. So,
yep.
Yeah.
But it's important to not get wrapped around the axle necessarily and know that, hey, this is the depth that works all the time. I mean, that setting the distance from the lands is one of your big advantages in reloading, and being able to do that and find and help tune your load to your rifle.
Yep, absolutely.
So maybe to start, Josh, I can maybe go through the way that I've learned how to do it. Yeah. And then the way that I've done it isn't necessarily the way you do it, and then you can kind of go into why you don't do it that way and what your process is.
Yeah, I think we have 3 different ways here to get to the end result.
Yep.
Finding the lands, and one of them being a tool here, the overall length gauge tool from Hornady. And then I know you have a way you were kind of taught, and then I have my way, which I don't think you even have ever heard of. And that's how I do it. So
yep. So this is the Hornady overall length gauge. It was the what was the name of the Stony Point was kind of the original manufacturer of it, but ultimately, and we've used these in like some of our reloading classes and stuff. But you have a modified case, and that modified case is drilled and tapped in the bottom, and so that gives you the clearance to be able to screw it on the end of this end of a rod, and then it's got a plastic rod that pushes up through the case to push the bullet up into the rifling, and the case has a neck that's opened up enough to allow that bullet to pass through it. So you fix your modified case to the rod, put it, pull the bolt from your gun, push it into the back of the bolt until the shoulder hits the chamber, and then you can push that rod up through to push the bullet into the lands, and then lock this lock nut on the back of the rod. And then when you pull it out, that bullet will very likely be stuck in the lands of the rifle. You have to have a cleaning rod to push it back out. But then with that locked, you can set that bullet on top of that plastic rod that's coming through there, and then that'll show you, you could take your datum dial, measure that distance, and then that should be where the lands is.
Yep.
The kind of the downfall, some of the pitfalls with that is, especially we saw it with a lot of new reloaders in those classes, is, I mean, you've got a plastic rod, how hard you push that up into the lands, and then, take your third hand that you have to lock that lock nut down. If you do that, I definitely encourage them to do it like several times. And we would see, again, especially new reloaders, they'll get a measurement that's 10 thousandths different than the last time they did it. And so there's a lot of variabilities going on here in the amount of pressure that you're pushing on the rod to put the case up into the chamber, and then the pressure you're putting of that plastic rod of the bullet into the lands and tightening it down. And did that bullet come out of that straight into the lands or not? It's a tricky measurement to get, you'll find through all these processes that we're doing, but it's, this is one of the only ones that has an off-the-shelf tool to do it. And I argue a person can do this successfly.
Yeah. And then also, the rod is obviously pretty interchangeable, but not all cartridges have a case to go with it. So there's nothing wrong too if you're pretty handy drilling and tapping the back of a fired case out. Out of your own rifle to make your own, basically, to accommodate this tool. Right.
And maybe what you're like, some of the Wildcats and things like that, there might not be a modified case out there. I know even I think there's places like Creedmoor Sports and that'll sell a kit to help you make a modified case. It has the right tap and something to hold it. Again, if you're pretty handy, you can create this stuff to do it, but it's having all the pieces there to be able to. Another way that like I was taught to do it through, there was Rich Mockeltz, who was a ex-Sierra Bullets technician on our pro staff. What he would do is take a case and he'd kind of cut into the side of the case with sizing it the same that you would if you're reloading and everything, but maybe even a little lighter tension, maybe closer to 1,000ths tension. But then he'd cut into the case with a jeweler's saw and kind of slot it to make it almost like a collet. So then he'd seat the bullet long, and then you would put that dummy round in your chamber and close the bolt. And then your bolt is acting like your seating die, seating that into the case. And then once that hits the lands, then that's your distance. Some risk with that is one, kind of how you're slotting that, and then two, like you go to pull that bolt back, pull that case out, if that bullet's lodged in the lands, it might come out some as you're drawing that case back. And you're not going to know that. Again, it's one of those things that maybe you do it several times on several cases and come up with an average to get yourself closer. What I've done historically is a part of that, but to actually not slot the case, but you can remove the extractor from the bolt, set your case with like 1,000ths tension, and you'll soft seat that way. And then when you pull the bolt back, the case isn't coming out with it. So you're taking your cleaning rod out the other end and pushing it out. And then that's where it's at. You're not risking that pulling out. You still have risk in that because you're pushing that cleaning rod in through and you don't have a lot of tension. Are you then pushing the bullet back into the case? Again, it's just a hard measurement to find. So
I guess my technique, we'll get into that, but two things that I think are pretty critical when finding this measurement. One, it needs to be on a clean rifle. If you've been shooting it or there's carbon buildup in there, you're going to get a false reading because you're going to hit that carbon before the actual rifling. So that's a big one. Has to be a clean barrel. So a brand new barrel's best when you're testing. And also every bullet is going to have a different measurement because of the profile of the bullet. So if you get, this number for a 105 Burger hybrid, it's not going to be the same for a 110 A-tip, That profile is totally different. So you can't just copy and paste those numbers. You're going to have to measure with that specific bullet, whatever bullet you want to use to get your number. The other thing is with my method, when we get into it, I like to have the case sized enough that I don't feel any resistance from the brass touching the chamber anywhere, because I'll just explain it here, but it's by a feel thing. So if I have any resistance, I'm going to think that's the bullet hitting the lands, but really it could be the brass touching the chamber. So
before you go into that way that you do it, I think you brought up a really good point with the bullets, and just to kind of bring that down to kindergarten level of why you need to do that with different bullets. It's not that your rifle's changing. It's that every time you change a profile of that bullet, it's going to change where it hits on that bullet. So, that datum line on the bullet is moving with the different angles of that profile. So it's not that, like, if you go from a 140 to a 147 even, that it's going to be the same spot. You might have some good starting points, but no, that's a really good point, and I kind of threw you off the rails there, but wanted to badger that a little more. And where you were at is like you want to be sure that case then is sized, not catching in the chamber, giving you a false of what is actually stopping.
Yep. So this method is actually probably easiest with the barrel off the action, but it can be done with it on the action. Just kind of depends on, honestly, how chubby of fingers you got, but I usually got pretty skinny pinky, so I can get my pinky in there to do this. But I'll make sure the case is sized enough. First, size a case, make sure it fits in the chamber with 100% free play, so there's no drag on it at all. Then I'll go ahead and seat a bullet longer than I think it's going to be in that chamber. And if the barrel is on the action, I'll just put that loaded round, well, it's a dummy round, but loaded case with a bullet into the chamber and guide it in with my pinky, and then just seat it with my pinky, just some little bit of pressure. And then from the muzzle end, I'll feed a cleaning rod down in, and with just holding a little bit of tension with my pinky, I'll feel with that cleaning rod and put pressure on it. You'll feel it dead stop. I mean, it's stuck just from that little bit of pressure. So you've pushed the bullet into the lands, it's stuck now. So then just by pushing it out, you'll feel it kind of pop. You're like, okay, it's in the lands. So then it's a lot of trial and error, but then I go and seat the bullet a little bit deeper, put it back in, feel it. Okay, it's still sticky, it's popping. Just keep doing that till I get to a point where all of a sudden you'll feel, and you got to kind of learn the feel, but you'll feel where it's just completely free.
And that means that, because when you say you're seating it with your pinky, you don't mean you're actually pushing the bullet into the case with your pinky. Right. You're just seating that bullet against the lands.
The brass is sized just how I would load it, so it's probably 2.5 thou tension. It's just like a loaded round, but I'm pushing on the back of the case head just to seat it in the chamber completely.
Right.
And then that bullet is into the lands. So then you'll get to a point where it's completely free. Now at that point, if you're making 20, 30 thou jumps, because if you only go a couple thou at a time and you seat it at 3.00 overall length on a X47 or something, it's going to take you all day
you're going to be there a while.
Yeah, to get down to size. So I'll do 20 or 30 thou jumps at first, just to get me close. And you'll kind of feel it when you're getting closer. It'll be less of a pop feel or a sticking feel. So then at that point, I'll do some smaller increments. Or if all of a sudden I go to a seating depth where I way past it and it's free, really free, I'm like, okay, I need to go back up, kind of split the difference, and then work it down into a couple thou sections there. And then once I get to it's right there on the edge, that's basically my number of touch.
And that's free. You have that free feeling because the shoulder of the case is hitting inside the chamber, but the bullet isn't jammed up hard into that rifling. Right?
Yep. So that's just off.
Just off.
Now take the measurement of that, and then maybe go back up a 10 thou or so on the seating die and do a couple more. Make sure you're getting that sticky. Come back down to where that one did, and you kind of can get an average and a feel for it. But like I said, it's trial and error to learn that feel of what feels right.
Yeah.
And again, the gun being clean and that brass being able to be free floating in there is critical to feel the right feel.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Yeah,
that's still a pretty technical way of doing it. Like you say, you've got a lot of touchy-feeliness going on there of, being sure that tension's there, and hopefully you don't have a 36-inch barrel where you're coming right around it with the cleaning rod to feel it at the same time. So there's definitely opportunity within the market to come up with a way to do this measurement better. But in the end, I guess, how important is it to know exactly where your lands is?
For me, it's relative, right? Within a few thou. The biggest thing is I don't want to be jamming into the lands when I'm doing a load. That's just going to increase pressure, spike pressure. Or if you're hunting or in a match situation and for whatever reason, you got one in the chamber and they say in a PRS match, you run out of time and you got to open the bolt, show clear. Well, if you have it jammed and not enough neck tension, you could potentially just dump a whole case of powder in your chamber, and now you have a serious mess, and you got a bullet stuck in your barrel. You got to get a cleaning rod and bang that thing out. It's not worth jamming in a PRS rifle, and probably not in a hunting rifle either. If you're out hunting, you got one loaded, you're stalking one. Well, the connection never happens where you take that shot. Well, at the end of the day, now you got to open the bolt and spit that out. It's the same mess. So, just knowing that we're not touching or jamming for the pressure reasons in the mess. And then, I like to be, being custom rifles we typically shoot, I like to set up my reamers where the base of the bullet or the meat plat where it starts is above the neck shoulder junction. So just being in that relative area there, not jamming, but not seated past the neck shoulder junction, that's where I like to be.
Yeah, and you're controlling that, like you say, by actually getting your reamer cut right. Cut right to the round you have to do what you want to do. You don't want to go past that neck shoulder junction for several reasons, probably just a potential of having a different tension at the bottom there. Yep. But I think in short, knowing one, I don't think the tools or methods are available to probably really get you within a thousandths of knowing where that bullet's hitting the lands. And that's, end of the day, knowing that exactly is probably not super important.
I think I think we can get within a couple thou, honestly, but like you're just saying there, knowing exactly isn't that important to me. I just need a reference number to know not to go past this. And for me, I'm going to start probably 15 off and only go deeper. So it's just a reference number for me. Now, whether my quote unquote 15 off is actually 15 or if it's 12 or 18, I really don't care. It's a reference number for me to be like, hey, when I'm doing load development, this is my number I start with. This is my reference number. And as I'm tweaking from there, I just know, it's just a reference. So
now, do you take that case? You've done the seating for that. Do you take that case and put it somewhere as like, this is my dummy round for this bullet in this rifle?
No, I just write it down.
Yeah, I think and that's perfect for you. But I think we've talked about it before. I sometimes really try to push people to keep that dummy round somewhere, just because if you say, wow, I've been using the Hornady comparator and I'm now switching to the Forster datum dial.
That's a problem.
That is a problem because that, again, that hole within the comparator tool might not be exactly the same size. So if you're saying your dimension is, 1.297 and now you try to recreate that with the Forster datum dial, that 1.297 you were getting with the Hornady comparator, now you're trying to recreate it with the datum dial. Just because your calipers read 1.297 doesn't mean that that's exactly the same depth. Where if you have that dummy round, it doesn't matter then. This is what was set to that. I can zero off of that, or I can at least reference and know what my tools are.
And I dealt with this when I had the Hornady comparator. Now use Forster's datum dial. The way to fix that is simply, set the die up to where the lands did hit with that comparator. And then once you have that set, now as you transfer your tools over, just measure that and see the difference. And then now write down your new number. That's as simple as that. Also, like the difference in mine is like 13 thousandths. Yeah. So it's like
which is significant. I mean, that could be really significant.
Well, now my 15 off is touching the lands.
Yeah.
Depending on what tool you use.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
And that's the other thing with using, I think we've beat this home in other podcasts, but using numbers from the internet, other people are measuring.
Yeah.
It's not your tool. Don't go by that number.
No. And that doesn't mean that number is useless. You can, you could start there and potentially your 13 thousandths different than
And I hear a lot of guys like, well, what's your overall length? Well, bullet tips are all deformed differently.
Yep.
So that can be an issue. That's why we really, for any accuracy, don't seat bullets by overall length.
Yep.
But if there is a guy online that's, they're just trying to compare tools, you could be kind of close if you say he gives you a base to ogive measurement, and then he gives you an overall length too, and then you can compare your base to ogive with that overall length. Then you could, it's ballpark, but I mean, there's so much variance in the tips. I almost don't even want to recommend that, but that would be the one case where I could see where it's like, if you have two forms of data, it's a little closer, but if it doesn't add up, then you know what I mean? You got to kind of use the common sense.
What I've seen happen with especially when we've done the classes and stuff and people have found this, okay, now I want to start 20 thousandths off the lands. That I've got this bullet, I've found it now, I want to start 20 thousandths off, and they load them all up. Then they're right where they want to be, and then they go to take the rifle, take their box of ammo, take the rifle out, and they go to load their magazine, and it doesn't fit in the magazine. Like that bullet at 20 thousandths off is longer than your magazine. Mm-hmm. That's something that you as like a gunsmith are really thinking about when you're setting up your reamers and doing that dimension too. Am I right? That you're kind of watching for like, hey, this is all well and good if I'm going to make this fit, but I'm in PRS. We're going to have 10 round mags. It's got to fit.
Yeah. I mean, even like the 6.5 Creedmoor Reamer, I have 153.5 burgers. At the lands, you're going to be longer than mag length, but those burgers seem to shoot really good at like 60 off, and that puts them in a perfect spot to feed out of the mag still. So for guys that want to run 6.5 Creed and the 153s, it's just right. I mean, if you have the binder plate in the mag, though, it's still too long, but if you have a non-binder plate standard mag, it fits perfect.
Yeah. So. I just say that to be like, again, don't wrap yourself around the axle of I got to hit a dimension. It whatever you find has to work in your whole system.
Right.
So, just be conscientious of where that's at, and you're fortunate to know, and like if they become your customer to cut their guns. I mean, this is another advantage of like going to that custom rifle build is where the free bore in your rifle is, and you have kind of set some of these up for these bullets, and this you can kind of ballpark them of just like you did with the 153 of, hey, this is what it's going to have to be if you're going to end up there.
Yeah.
That factory gun, you're going to have to find it, and you don't commit yourself to a bullet necessarily until you can figure it all out of what's going to work.
Yeah.
So why, I guess, the importance, I think, of what we're kind of reiterating is, as we do everywhere else, is like whether you do the Josh method or the Hornady overall method or my soft seating, whatever, is again consistency. Like you have whatever process you have to do, it's going to have to be repeatable in order to give you a valid reference point. So whether if I do the same test you did and end up 5 thousandths off the measurement you have, as long as I'm consistently 5 thousandths off, that's what's important, is that you gain that consistency. But I guess why, again, is this so important? Like, why can I not, Josh, just, take your recommendation and just always seed them 60 thousandths off the lands? I know this is your rifle. You cut it. I should just stay 60 thousandths off. I shouldn't have to think of it again, correct?
No, I mean, we talked about jam, which is one problem. We don't want to be jammed, but it's funny. You kind of bring that up in a way that sparks my thinking of like, man, you get on the forums or the internet and everyone's like, oh, this bullet likes 15 thou jump. This bullet likes 40. This one likes 60. You get 100 different answers. And it's funny. It's like I can have the same barrel, 2 different powders, same bullet, 2 different jumps, shoot best. So I don't think it's a jump we're trying to find per the bullet likes. It's more a harmonics thing and chamber pressure. And I mean, until proven otherwise, I don't think there is a specific jump. But when we're tuning a rifle and we have X powder with X neck tension and X brass and X this, X that, that can tune in a load. Now, sometimes, I know we're going to get into load development in a series coming up here soon, which will be pretty exciting. I know a lot of guys have probably been itching to hear that, but we're hoping to bring a buddy in, and him and I, talk about this weekly and go back and forth with each other, because we do have some similar methods and some different. But, he did a test the other day. He's like, I'm to the conclusion seating depth doesn't matter with this bullet in this chamber. Like, that's interesting, because same chamber, same gun.
Yeah.
Not same gun, but same chamber, job, same bullets. I'm seeing differences with the seating. So maybe that's my lousy shooting. But,
right.
That I guess what I'm getting at is I don't think there's a one seating depth fits all answer.
Yeah.
And it's more about what testing you're doing and chamber pressures and harmonics.
Yeah. Again, it's like so many variables, and the seating depth is one that as a reloader you have a lot of control over. I mean, you can adjust it and change. I know when we were doing some of the reloading classes, and this was and a lot of what we talk about here is like, what is making the difference? I don't really care who it is. No one is looking in that chamber and actually physically seeing what's going on, or I shouldn't say no one. There's definitely people way smarter than me that can add in all these variables and do the absolute control test. But some of the problem with testing all of this is it's an ever evolving thing. You can't just put 30,000 rounds down the same barrel and have it be the same as it was at the beginning of the test, and you can't run exactly the same brass.
I mean, that barrel's changing every round, literally.
Yeah.
Erosion and then, yeah.
So it's like that brass is changing. This is all changing. It's what makes this all fun, is because you're going to then kind of tune the name of the game is trying to find what variables make the biggest impact and will be the longest standing over these ever evolving differences.
Mm-hmm. I guess to simplify your question to me is, I want to be at a spot that I know I'm going to have safe pressures at, and I could go up or down a little bit to fine tune once I'm kind of honed in on my process or developing a load. So
yeah,
that's why I want to know where the lands are at with given bullet.
Yep. I've always, like, when people have asked me for recommendations on bullets that'll work for this cartridge, which one I'm not the person you should ask necessarily. I don't have the breadth of knowledge, but I've always tried to, if you're just starting out, I've always tried to point them to a more tangent ogive bullet as opposed to a secant ogive bullet, just because it seems in my history that they're a little more forgiving on just where that starts at in the seating depth. Like I know if I start with a Sierra 142 and a Creedmoor, I can set it at 60 thousandths off and not necessarily see a huge degradation and move beyond my capabilities to shoot. So 1,000% could be wrong on that, and I think that's what any argument in any reloading thing is be willing to be proved wrong, because then you'll turn your back and there'll be one that comes out that is certainly more finicky.
Yeah, I mean that's accurate. Like what I refer to it as a fatter bullet.
Yep.
So a fat bullet, it just seems there's less chance to upset it as it's going down the barrel.
Yeah.
So
in my mind, it's gonna like follow that better, not be as critical as far as when it hits the land, where it jumps, just because you have more bullet there heading down.
Yep, exactly. So that's why a lot of the close range bench rest guys, they might be shooting a 6mm, but you'll find they're shooting custom 62 grain bullets. We're shooting 6mm, but we're shooting 105s, 110s, a really long slippery bullet. Well, bench rest guys are trying to put them in the same hole every shot.
Yep.
So if that's not proof that, that fatter, quote unquote fatter, short, stubby bullet is going to produce more accuracy, they wouldn't be shooting them if that wasn't the case. So.
Right. Yeah. And we were talking with a South African bullet manufacturer about a lot of different things that there too is, and that was part of the discussion, was like how much of that bullet is hitting in the rifle can be a positive in some things, a negative in some others, and it's just trying to find that balance. But in the end, I mean, this episode we're talking about, kind of some different ways to find the lands and the importance of it. And when you're setting up, I think we talked about it a little bit, but when you're setting up a chamber reamer to cut, do you usually have a bullet in mind that you're trying to make that work for?
Yep. Yeah, essentially make a dummy round and have that sent off to be like, hey, this is where I want the bullet to sit in the neck. This is what I'm calling touching the lands. And then, Reamer manufacturers can make that, and then that free bore is built into it around your dummy round.
And then so if you had that specific example where it's built off of that dummy round, I'm kind of trying to play devil's advocate here a little bit, like, and you set it up to that burger bullet. Now, should I not even think of trying a Hornady in that chamber at that dimension?
No, that's not the case. The ELD it would be close. For me, I've been finding like the more free bore, it seems like it's not going to hurt it. Jumping more. I mean, look at what Weatherby used to do. They used to jump a quarter of an inch, 250,000. That was nothing. And those guns shot lights out. So yeah, I don't know. No, I'm not saying don't try it. It's going to be close. Now, I have found like bullets like the A-tip, they seem to like a lot more room in there. So don't have 100% proof, but I know a lot of guys that say my 25 by 47. I have a free bore set up for a 135 burger. If you try the new 138 A-tip, you're probably going to want to add 40 or 50 thousandths of free bore to that to get those to sit in there better, just because they're longer. They're longer. So a lot more of that bullet's going to sit down in that case.
What
which isn't always a negative thing. I'm not saying it's not going to shoot if that bearing surface is down past the next shoulder junction. I just don't personally want it to be past that.
You'd prefer not to go into that if you can avoid it.
Correct.
And I know this might be different on, like you kind of said that, like, hey, I know if I have these two different powders and this bullet, and thinking of it being a harmonics thing, and that, a lot of things working together, at what point when you're trying to dial in your load, at what point are you looking at, I guess, what are you looking for in terms of improvement when you're making those seating depth changes, and at what point are you doing that? That's kind of a big question. It's kind of all over the place, but it's like, when you're doing that initial load development, are you starting out with like groups of different seeding depths off the lands against different powders, or kind of how that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to leave these guys hanging, but do you want to save that for the loading podcast, or?
No, we can. I guess I'm just, at what point do you feel that
seeding depth matters?
Yes. That's the.
Yeah, if I'm to the point, well, I kind of mess with seeding depth as I'm doing powder as well. Sometimes it just depends on what I'm seeing on the target. If I'm like, okay, numbers are good, point of impact all looks really good, I'll play with some seeding depth, and then it's kind of like the last thing to bring it all together.
Okay.
So basically, I think powder charge and powder type is first most important impact of the groups, and then the seeding depth kind of just fine tunes. If I'm getting 0.4 inch groups consistently, play with seeding depth. That might make it better. That might make it worse.
Yeah.
And goal is 0.2, 0.3 inch groups.
So if I'm brand new to this, you cut me a rifle, where do I start? Like what, are you going to be able to give me a depth recommendation to start at? Yeah.
I mean, I've seen 15 off, 40 off, 60 off, 100 off. They all seem to work. You mix, I'd say a brand new barrel, I'm going to give you a couple loads to try. If it's something I have a lot of data for, and if those don't work, let's say I'm doing something new, right?
Yes. Yep.
That make it a lot easier, because a lot of times these guys are copying and pasting, and it's pretty good right out of the gate. Just small tweaks, but I'd probably start 40 thou off. That gives me some room to go closer, gives me some room to go farther, or just call it 50. Let's call it 50, because there's a good chance I'm going to go as low as 15, as high as 80 to 100. And so I'll start at 50 off and just do strictly powder charge test first. So that's kind of how I start.
Okay. So like maybe you don't know the answer to this, and I'm putting you on the spot, but like real life example, you built that 33XC rifle for us when we're really trying to look at some of that ELR stuff. And I mean, that one, we're a single feed. We don't really care about the magazine. Do you know where you started with that one?
Actually, on that one, I think I just went with 20 off, and that thing shot really good out of the gate. So
yeah,
that was strictly powder charge, just playing with powder.
Yep.
And I left the seeding alone just to not have another variance.
Yep.
Till I got to the speeds I wanted or thought that thing should be running. And then once I got to the speeds, it kind of opened up a little bit. So then I retweaked seeding depth, maybe adjusted it 5-10 thou, and it came right back in, and it's been shooting really good since. So
yeah.
It's maybe finished at 25 thou and whatever charge we got with it. What powder?
That's maybe been like for you, you're kind of like you say, you're kind of cutting and pasting. You've got a lot of, whether it's a 6 GT or a 6 5x47, 25 by 47, you've got a lot of data yourself to kind of cut and paste to know where to start. Where that one, there was not a lot out there. You were just kind of like,
yeah. And interestingly, like David Tubb, I contacted him, and because we were using DTAC bullets and in that 33, and he's like, yeah, a lot of guys like to shoot them. They shoot good at 40 off. I never even got to 40 off because it was shooting so good where it was. It's like, well, the cost to shoot this thing, why piss with it? But
yeah,
it's like, well, it's hammering at 25, so
right,
awesome.
Yeah. So no, I think we've kind of left with a lot of, hey, here's several different ways a person can check the lands. I hope we didn't leave people with more questions than answers, but the nice thing is that we've got. We don't plan on stopping this podcast train. So if you have a question we didn't cover, just like this whole episode was based around someone's question on how to do it, float it back in there. We'll try to pick up where we left off. And again, it's like seeing as we talk about the seeding depth and adjusting a load, how it melds into something else as well. I mean, that's what absolutely all of this reloading precision shooting is. It's making a whole lot of different things work well for you, and just kind of having the ideas of how to steer those in that right direction.
Yeah, and I think during that, when we get into the actual developing a load podcast fully in depth, you'll kind of see some trends on, what we're really looking for, and then just learning how to read a target and being able to
let the target tell you what that load needs and what you need to do.
Essentially, yep.
And that's that's a skill. I mean, that's something that I'm looking forward to you being able to share with people on how to do that.
Yep, me too.
So, I think this episode will probably be out in time. I mean, we're kind of taking a lot of this information that we have here too, and are looking at doing some more kind of classes related to some of the precision shooting. One of the first ones we're doing is the 30th.
Yep, August 30th.
And that's going to be out where we had a month off where we were taking our not doing
matches,
not doing a match. So we're doing like a really basic level starter kind of precision rifle class. Not obviously getting into things like this where it's the lands, but knowing some of that basics of how to in short, not look like an idiot to go into one of your first PRS matches, or just get some of those little tidbits on getting in there.
I mean, I think the key points will be what the PRS actually is, get them understanding that, how to sign up for matches, all that stuff, but also you're going to definitely touch on win. We'll do a lot of positional shooting, rifle setup, then we'll go actually shoot at the range and build position, shoot off props, run all your data out. So all the things you really need to start hitting targets and feel comfortable coming out to a match. So
I'd recommend if any of that stuff interests you, probably sign up for we've got that Forster Focus newsletter. That's kind of usually the avenue that we put some of that stuff out, or follow us on Facebook. We try to put some of that stuff there. We're a small company trying to do more, and just be, I feel like Forster in general kind of got to a point where they were a little out of touch with the shooters themselves, mostly because they were so behind on the tools that they had that it was like, put your nose down, and the customer's telling you what you want by what they order, make it and get it out there to them. It's been really nice for me to bring yourself from JE Precision in, and I just feel like we're getting a lot better finger on the pulse of the market. And I mean, things like this, how to find the land, seat the bullet, our tools, and we in the shop have known how to do for a long time. Appreciate everybody that's listening and taking the time and your time, Josh, going through it here.
Yep, I appreciate it.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.